WBRP. Time to go farm to studio. Time to welcome in Ag Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain. That's not even plugged in, so don't even worry about it.
I was looking at that. Yes. Yes.
Dr. Strain, welcome back, man. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Let's get
Thank
that
you.
on this side, so it's in between us. I should have done that during the break, and that's my apologies.
That's
You're all
quite
good.
all right. You're still getting ready for the Super Bowl.
I am getting ready for the Super Bowl. Gonna be right here on Talk 107.3 FM. Westwood One's coverage begins at 4 p.m.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, we're gonna do a little simulcast between us and our ESPN station. So.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good.
What's the latest in your world?
Well, let's see. Today I'm headed to talk to the ag consultants in Marksville.
Mm-hmm.
This afternoon I go to Lafayette. We have the meeting of the Louisiana Veterinary Medical Association and Continuing Education. I'll lecture on Sunday. And then I do get to go home to my farm Sunday afternoon. Then Monday I head to Washington, D.C.
What's going on in Washington, D.C.?
Farm Bill.
Yeah.
And meetings with our, the different agencies, the USDA, the FDA, the EPA, all of those meetings together. So all the ag commissioners get together, once a year in Washington. And then, the heads of the agencies, we come, we sit down, we visit, and then we can frankly and openly discuss all the issues. But we're really pushing on the Farm Bill because this is the year of the Farm Bill. And one of the big considerations, and I've talked directly to my good friend Steve Scalise. I was in Washington about 10 days ago.
Me too.
And so one of the things is so you look at legislation like the Farm Bill, there's all these provisions in there. For instance, the disaster provisions, crop insurance, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, with disaster provisions, they're never properly funded. They put it in there, they don't fund them so they can get the right score, and they pass the bill. And they said, well, look, if something happens, we'll find some money and fund it.
Right.
So then you have to have these ad hoc fundings in the continuing resolutions. Well, if we have more hurricanes, we have another disaster anywhere in the United States, then if the money for the disaster aren't in the disaster provisions of the Farm Bill, and now with the issues over the debt ceiling, they may not be able to fund them. So if you put something in that Farm Bill, look, let's go ahead and make sure that it's funded. Don't put it in and say, okay, it's there, but then if something happens, you got to come back to Washington and set up another program. It needs to, and this has been going on, since my entire career as ag commissioner. When I was first elected, it was after Gustav and Ike.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, and there was $1 billion. And back then, $1 billion, we used to think, my gosh, look how much money. Now they talk trillions.
Right.
But $1 billion in damage to the southern states. And the Farm Bill, there was nothing there,
Mm-hmm.
for agriculture throughout the southern United States. So I spent literally a month in Washington, entire month. Finally, I called Baton Rouge and said, look, send me some tickets. Where? I'm coming home, because I had one-way tickets. And we worked until we were able to obtain that. But that gets more difficult now each time.
From a simple budgeting perspective, like think about through the eyes of your home budget, right?
They don't have
anything you set aside money
budget.
for.
No.
It's going to cost you more if you try to cover it on the back end than if you prepare for it.
Not only that, whenever you have to come up with funding through a continuing resolution,
Mm-hmm.
the things that are desperately needed are tied in with those things that may not be desperately needed.
Yeah.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And so it ends up is that the disasters or other things are held hostage. So, you got to vote for this CR. Well, look, it's got all this pork in there. Yeah, I know, but if you want to be able to deal with this emergency situation, it's an all or none situation.
Right.
And so that's and if you listen to discussions in Washington, they've got to get their fiscal house in order. Washington hasn't had a, quote, budget probably in the last 15 years. Just, they pass a budget for a year, a budget.
Right.
Right? That's not the way they do it.
No.
They pass a continuing resolution, and it's variable in time to fund the government for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And then they keep passing that. As it used to be that they would pass lots of legislation. Now, on an average year, they pass less than 100 bills. And so what they do, everything they want to do, they put it into a CR because in Washington, unlike Baton Rouge, you can put anything pretty much in any bill.
Right.
Here in Baton Rouge, to amend a bill has to be in the same section of law and the same subject matter, period. You can't just tie apples and oranges together, literally. And so that's a big difference between things happen in Washington and happen here in Baton Rouge.
This is a conversation we've had with Congressman Graves a lot about the level of frustration with how everything gets lumped into one bill, and would there even be a possibility of saying one bill, one topic? And I know that's supposed to be explored this session, but I don't think it's not going to go anywhere.
And it should be, because, again, if you look at the way it should be done, if you've got a bill, you got a topic, it should go to a committee, should have hearings, should have up and down votes.
Yes.
You can't just lump everything into a 1,500-page bill, and you've got all these different subject matters, all these different things going on. It should be. No, and for us, it's called a dual object. You can't have a dual object bill.
Right. And it happens so often where something, poisonous to the bill gets put in there, and then the headline reads, Senator votes against farmers.
Yes.
Well, no, there was so much more within that bill that they didn't like.
That's correct.
And the
That's
farmer,
correct.
whatever
And
the good stuff is,
that really needs to be dealt with, especially as
Absolutely.
we have to get our federal fiscal house in order.
So, Ag Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain's our guest. With the farm bill, was roughly every 5 years or so, right?
Every 5 years, but if you don't pass it, it reverts back.
Okay.
So you'll always have something in place, but things change over time. And so normally talk about a 2023 farm bill, we'll probably get out in 2024.
Okay.
We get right to that edge, and so it's a very big bill. But currently between around 75% of the farm bill, and sometimes more, is in supplemental nutrition funding. So you have SNAP that's tied into all the other farm programs. So the vast majority of the farm bill is actually the supplemental nutritional program, the SNAP program.
Right.
That's in there. But you have everything. You have conservation, and that's a very huge part of the farm bill. You have all the farm programs. You have the foreign market access programs. All of these things, that the USDA oversees is in that farm bill. And that is the roadmap. And then it outlines all the funding and all the programs. And, if you look, agriculture is the largest industry in Louisiana. It's the largest industry in America. This is the framework. This is the roadmap. And we have to have that so we can have an orderly conduction of business. Everything's in there. The research is there, all of the different programs. And that's what keeps us on the cutting edge on the ability to provide food at the least cost of any industrialized nation, and keeps agriculture in the United States and in Louisiana, at the top of the scientific pyramid, if you think about that, and we lead the world.
Let's talk about Louisiana in that aspect, in that regard, when it comes to a trip to Washington. We hear so many times about how, whether it's offshore drilling or hurricane recovery, whatever the case, it's difficult to explain to the rest of the nation what we do, how we do it, and why we're different. Is
Yes.
that the same in your world?
It is. I've spent a lot of time testifying before committees there in Washington, between House committees and Senate committees. Agriculture is different in South Louisiana than it is in Massachusetts. But generally, we all eat. But one of the things that I found shocking, I was called to Washington to do a briefing to the staffers, and this was on labor issues.
Okay.
So the Commissioner Todd Staples from Texas and I went to Washington at the request, of the congressional delegation, and we had about 150 staffers. And what I was kind of shocked was, number one, they're all very young. Very, very young, 24 to 32 years of age. And we're trying to get really into the depth of the details, but we had to go all the way back to have to give a bigger picture. So one of the things you have to do in D.C., especially with the staff of the entirety, is to continuously educate them on, what we do and where. Louisiana, we're the number one sugar producer in the United States, number one in sugar. Think about that. We're the third largest rice producer. If you look at that, then Washington needs to know, they need to understand, but agriculture in South Louisiana, very different than agriculture in Colorado.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Based off of the different products we have,
And the climate,
way we grow,
and the climate, and the water.
Grown.
And if you think about all of our different issues, for us, most of our water issues, most of the time is too much.
Sure.
You know, but we have salt water, we got brackish water, we have fresh water, we have river water, we have well water, we have all these things. Water management for us is a huge deal. So when you talk about all those interactions, if you think about how we grow rice, the majority of our rice, we use surface water, and that surface water, those canals and that system's been around since after the Civil War when rice came to Louisiana.
Really?
Yeah, rice came to Louisiana. If you go to, have you ever been to Iowa in Louisiana?
Yeah.
Most of those farmers came from Iowa.
Right.
Okay, and what they did, Dr. Dalrymple from LSU went into the northern states, said, look, we're going to grow wheat down here in this area, in this fertile plain. Well, wheat didn't grow so well, but rice did. And so what happened during the Civil War, the infrastructure in the Carolinas was destroyed. Carolina Gold is where they first had rice because a ship coming from Madagascar had to put into port and stayed there. And the captain gave, rice, to that state. So look, thank you for helping us. And they started a rice industry. But during the war, all of the canals, all that infrastructure was destroyed. They started raising rice because it grew very well, in the Lake Charles area and the Iowa area, down in Lacassine and those areas. And those original farmers that came from Iowa, mostly German farmers and others that were to raise wheat, began raising rice.
We got 2 minutes till break, and we're going to pick up about a couple of other topics after the break. But heading into the break, I want to ask, is there anything new or different about this year's farm bill, that we haven't seen before, or is it just the continuation of other programs?
No. There's going to be a lot different because now we're looking at soil health differently. We're looking at carbon sequestration. We're looking at retention of phosphorus, retention of nutrients, a big, big focus on conservation, carbon sequestration, dealing with all of those issues, but doing that in a way that has enhanced productivity. We're also looking at how do we increase productivity over the next 10 years, because the Farm Bill is really a 10-year bill. It's in effect for 5, but it sets that roadmap. How do we gear up for what is coming to feed more people with less inputs and be better stewards of the environment? So a big push in that respect.
Well, in that regard, is that just an expansion or a new branch of SNAP, or is this
No. This, when you start looking at the issue of carbon, for instance, 18% of all the carbon produced in the United States is absorbed by our forest right now.
Yeah.
If you look at the number one natural way for carbon sequestration is what? Agriculture.
Yes.
Keeping things growing. So new types of ideas, new types of credits, dealing with, instead of, what we don't want to see is naked soil, right? No naked soil. Okay. So when you harvest one crop, you put another crop in right then. So you get a cover crop that has better water retention, it has better nitrogen retention, or we're putting nitrogen in the ground. So much to do with conservation.
He is Ag Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain, joins us every month. It's always a fascinating conversation. We've only scratched the surface thus far. We got a lot to talk about in our next segment. I want to talk a little bit. Crawfish season is here. In fact, last time Dr. Strain was on, it was we were getting reports of some ridiculous crawfish prices. They're already dropping a little bit. That and a whole lot more coming up there after we check news, traffic, and weather. It's 8:30.
They are good right now, too.
Are they? Ooh. I haven't had them yet. We have so my wife and I started a tradition a little over a decade ago. We got tired of going out for Valentine's Day because everybody goes out for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And even if you got a reservation, you're still waiting an hour to sit down and be rushed through a meal. It's going to be rushed. It's so we decided about a decade ago, Valentine's Day would be the beginning of our crawfish season.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Yeah. Stop off somewhere, grab about 10 pounds worth, which is up to about 18 now since all the kids are eating them. And kick it off then. Yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, to get a permit, you've got to have landscaping in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a 1-for-1 though.
No.
Like you can't knock down, 20 pine trees that have been there for 50, 60 years and expect to get the same output from 20 little birch trees that you bought at Clegg's.
That's right.
I'd like to see more. I like to see more just not being knocked down in the first place. But that's the most cost-effective way to put in a subdivision. Clear everything out, and then.
Well, what's the number one enemy of sugarcane? Number one enemy.
Population. Yeah.
Concrete. Right? And it's amazing. You drive by, at night, and you got a nice sugarcane field. The next morning, concrete just erupts from the ground. And then come back about a week later, it grows into a house.
Yeah.
But it is an issue. And I was down yesterday. I was in Thibodeau and talking to ag leadership, and I saw all these big subdivisions. And last year when I went, they were sugarcane fields. And what's the most fertile soil in the world? Where you grow sugar. Most fertile soil in the world, and we're growing houses.
Yeah.
Right?
It's crazy.
But why? And why did they build a subdivision there? Well, look at that sugarcane land. It's perfect. It's drained. There's nothing underneath. There's no obstructions. You've got a clean palette, right? You've got a new canvas, and it can just boom, it's there. Everything. And I'm telling you, when I'm saying it's level, because it's been laser leveled, it's perfect. Or it's step leveled, where the water comes down in steps and steps. Yeah. Yeah. I think it is, but, we have free private property rights. But the only good thing is that land under those houses, the soil is about 12 feet thick. Amazing, right? Well, our great-grandchildren, they'll know how to fix that problem.
That's true.
There'll be sugar cane there again, or tomatoes, or vegetables.
Yeah.
But that's why we're big push in research is to develop more cold-tolerant sugar cane so that we can start growing cane further upriver, past Bunkie. Yeah. And we're working
Well,
on that.
and so from the developer standpoint, that perfect land is often close to other areas of commerce.
Absolutely.
But if you go back in time about 100 years, that's how those areas of commerce became areas of commerce.
From sugar cane.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. We get sugar cane. We don't want to have to go
we have oil
50
and gas.
miles away.
We have oil and gas. We have sugar. And we have the seafood industry. Right? That's the triad.
Look at right across. Look at Bruley. Right
Yeah,
across
look
the
at
river, Bruley. Everywhere around, is it Sinclair Plantation?
Sinclair.
Everywhere around Sinclair, just popping up 3 and 4 bedroom houses, springing up because you can get affordable house just a couple minutes from downtown.
That's right.
Right. So,
That's right.
But that was all sugar cane.
Yeah.
So-
But look at Metairie. That was all farms.
Yeah.
That was all dairy farms.
There's a great
Right.
book. Oh, what was it called?
Where I grew up, like before I moved to San Antonio,
Uh-huh.
it was a whole lot of land. And now when I go back home, there's like a metro bus. Like we didn't have like a bus before. You know how like here there's cats?
Yeah.
We didn't have that.
Yeah.
And now there's that. Like there's restaurants everywhere. It's super trendy now. Like and there's a whole bunch of new subdivisions coming out and it's like what the heck? Like it makes me so sad.
Mm-hmm.
This book that came out in the 90s is called A Tongue of Land to Pasture. It's about Metairie. And it was written by Monsignor Bazoo,
Yes.
who baptized me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it talks about Metairie from before it was Metairie. Like,
Yeah, because Metairie is bound.
but you got to go
Lake
back to the
Pontchartrain,
40s for that.
Mississippi River.
Right.
And the Western Levee. The
Yeah.
Western Levee.
Yeah.
So that's the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can remember when you went out past the airport, you in the swamp. The whole thing was swamp.
Mhm.
Right. Yes. There was nothing there. Nothing. Yes. And I like it where I live. My closest neighbors to the east are 14 miles away. I'm surrounded by large land masses, the big timber farms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My
I always
closest,
say that,
yeah.
like, if I ever get super successful, I want to move back to Texas, like in the hill country, like in Helotes. I would go move there and just, like, live on a hill somewhere with nobody around me.
That's where I like it. I have nobody around. I got my cypress trees in the back.
Yeah.
I have some neighbors about a quarter mile
Uh-huh.
to the east towards Avita Springs, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So, and where I was born and raised, our closest neighbors when I was a kid were a mile away. And that's on the farm that I live now. Yeah.
Stand by. We are looking at cooler temps heading into the weekend once the rain is all cleared out. In fact, high today of 70. Overnight low tonight gets down to 49. Now, there is a 50-50 shot of rain in the forecast for tomorrow. You might see some showers. Not going to be anything like what we saw last night. Tomorrow's high 69. Tomorrow night gets down to 45. Saturday, another 50% chance of rain with a high of 48 and an overnight low of 38. So Orion's going to be really cold. On Sunday, we top out at 58. Monday, 65. Right now, we are looking at 56 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge.
And that's okay.
What?
We can handle those temperatures. We don't want to freeze.
Cold. I know.
We don't want to freeze, right? It'll knock the buds off the strawberries. We don't want to freeze. And what happens when it gets real cold? What do the crawdaddies do?
They go back down.
Yes, they won't eat. They say we're not gonna take that bait. No.
837 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. I love doing a weather report right in the middle of Dr. Strain's segment. Pick up what you were just saying as the bumper was playing on the way back in. It's going to get down to 38 or 34 overnight
That's okay.
Saturday into Sunday.
34 is okay.
Yeah.
But we don't want to get down below freezing because, one, we don't want, quote, to knock the buds off the strawberry plants, right? We don't want to knock the flowers off because, look, the strawberries are coming. And I had some Friday. The Ponchatoula Strawberry Queen gave me some strawberries. They were magnificent. They were red all the way through. It wasn't like
Okay.
the red around the outside like you get out of California.
No.
They were red. Oh, they were absolutely delicious.
I don't know how to explain it to people who don't buy their strawberries off the side of the road or from a farmer's market or something.
They are
if
so
you go to Walmart
much
or
better.
Costco and get your strawberries, the strawberries are going to be bigger, but they're not going to be nearly as juicy, and they're going to be white in the middle.
That's right. These are red all the way through. So look for that certified Louisiana seal, either on the top of the clamshell. We call them clamshells now, or the pites. Or if you get a flat, look on the side of the case. Certified Louisiana, those Louisiana strawberries. There's nothing better because, again, where are they grown? They're grown on our alluvial soil.
Right.
They have the advantage of our temperature. And our farmers, let me tell you something, they baby those strawberries, but they were magnificent.
Now, along with, you just can't replace them.
No.
Now, along with the strawberries and the effects of a freeze, the cold weather affects the crawfish season as well.
It does. But we've been very fortunate because we haven't had a lot of cold. And so when it cools off, it's a little harder to catch them. So if you get a week of cold weather, two things are going to happen. One, we'll have less crawfish, and the price is going to go up, right? Because you can't catch them. Because the crawfish, the way we catch them in the ponds is using baits. But now as it warms up, they'll be able to catch them more, and they will grow more because, they are cold-blooded crustaceans.
Yeah.
But they are really nice. We've had some nice crawfish. I've really had some good etouffee, and I can't wait. Crawfish season is here. The other day when they were talking about Groundhog Day, I said, when the groundhog, they picked him up, he's looking around, says, is he looking for a shadow? I said, no, he's looking for crawfish. That's when crawfish season starts.
What? That's about 12 days ahead of where crawfish season starts in our house. We got a little tradition where, Valentine's Day, rather than the rat race of trying to make a reservation somewhere and you're going to be rushed and it never lives up to its billing. Christy and I, we just stay home. I grab crawfish on the way home from work, and we just spread the newspapers out on the kitchen table.
That's right. And that's nothing better. You know how I cook crawfish?
How?
I get the crawfish, I call my brother, let's have crawfish, and I start, and my brother, he's a perfectionist when he cooks. First thing he says, get out the way, you're doing this wrong.
Love it.
So, that's my formula every time, and they come out perfect, right? Perfect. And there's an art to cooking crawfish. There's a real art to cooking shrimp, too.
Yeah. And they're different, by the way.
They're very different. You can be a little less exact with crawfish than shrimp.
Yeah.
But you got to be, most people overcook the crawfish. That's a big deal. I was there at Crawfish Town, USA, and there in Henderson in that area, and they've got it down to an art.
Yeah.
Because they get the fresh crawfish that morning, and they bring it there, and then it's kind of rinsed with well water. And they're in the boiling water, in the boil for about 7-8 minutes.
Yep.
And then they're soaking in a season for about 5 minutes, and they're done, right? And it's done. They got it down pat. But most people cook them too much, and because you want them firm, but you want them to suck up all that flavor. And I tell you, it's just incredible. And now, when you boil your crawfish, you got to have Louisiana sweet potatoes. You get some yams. You put those
Look
Louisiana.
at Segway King over here.
Oh my goodness! And sweet potato. Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. Because it is National Sweet Potato Month. But you take your sweet potatoes and you put them in that crawfish boil and put plenty in there, because they are delicious. But also, the ones that are left over after the boil, when you peel in the rest of those crawfish tails for your etouffee, take those sweet potatoes and wrap them up in some tin foil. You can put them in the fridge, or when you take. When you're cooking your pork chops or your steak, whatever you're putting there, heat those back up. So like twice cooked sweet potatoes from that crawfish boil with a little RB. You know what RB is?
Real butter.
Real butter.
Yeah.
Real butter. Oh, yeah. Look, life is too short not to have real butter, but sweet potatoes are
So it is Sweet Potato Month. And yes, when the first time you realize how sweet potatoes come out of the crawfish boil, it makes regular potatoes regular potatoes, like you win. You win. You're healthier.
You're healthier.
You taste better.
Full of riboflavin, full of minerals, full of fiber, very nutritious.
It's not even a contest anymore.
That's right.
So, the first time, my cousin cuts them in half, so they soak up all of the boil.
That's right. I love sweet potatoes. And look, I'll cook sweet potatoes. I'll make a sweet potato soup.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. But you got to use some
heavy cream. It holds up? Or,
Oh, you got to use some heavy cream, and there, yeah. Yeah, it's really, 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 really nice.
And Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain is our guest. Okay, National Sweet Potato Month. Sweet potatoes are underrated in Louisiana.
They are, but it's a big business.
How much we produce.
It is big. Most of that is in central Louisiana to the north. You got to have the right, they like sandy soil, as we say. Sweet potatoes don't like to get their feet wet. That's a term, because sweet potatoes, they're in rows, and they're actually very aerobic. So those rows cannot be flooded, you got about 3 days of high water and then you lose your tubers. But sweet potatoes grow in that sandy soil. They grow very, very well, and it's mostly central and north Louisiana. It is a big business. You're looking at just to the farmer $10-15 million, but we have one of the largest sweet potato processing plants, in the United States as Lamb Smith Wesson. And so when you look at that plant, sweet potato fries, we looked at mashed, sweet potatoes and all these things, but it's so nutritious and so healthy. So next time you go, instead of ordering French fries, order sweet potato fries.
Is that one of the ones where we're flagging what comes from Louisiana and what doesn't?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so, but sweet potatoes are tracked no matter what state they come from.
Sure.
You want certified Louisiana sweet potatoes. You want local yams. And again, because they taste better. Our Beauregard, our Evangelines, because they've been developed, over, a century of research to do that. But they are high, they're very sweet. They're high in sugar, very nutritious, and very, again, healthy for you. Especially, for eye health and other things.
Does LSU still have their sale? I know they used to do a sale every year, a big sweet potato sale.
They do. They have sweet potato. And one of the preeminent sweet potato research stations in the world is at LSU. That's the research station, and I think that's in Chase. And because, again, the sweet potato farmers voluntarily help fund that research station.
Yeah.
Same way we have the preeminent sugar research stations in the world, the preeminent rice research stations in the world. And a majority of the funding that goes to that, it comes, from the farmers, and the rest comes from the state. But again, that research is key, and people from all over the world come to study at our sweet potato, our rice, and our sugar research stations.
Ag Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain is our guest. So it's not just National Sweet Potato Month. It is also Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to agriculture, there's a very rich history and tie-in here.
There really is. And if you look at, for instance, the inventor of the sugarcane planter, Leonard Julian Sr., at the turn of the century, began, working. If you talk about, our, Black history, our minority farmers, there's so much. They work so very hard. And there's a lot of history here. If you look at the museums, you look at all of the culture here. And if you go back, you talk about our Creole culture, you talk about our Black culture, all the things that come together. They made a tremendous and continue to make a tremendous contribution to agriculture here in Louisiana, and a lot of history there as well.
Absolutely. Ag Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain is our guest. We got a couple more minutes before break. I think we have enough time to talk about specialty crop block grants.
Yes, that's going on right now, and of course, you have to have your grant application in, by March. And what it is that we receive money from the USDA, and the purpose of this is to enhance the competitiveness of Louisiana-grown specialty crops, fruits, vegetables, tree nuts. Are you talking like pecans, dried fruits, nursery crops, and others in local markets or abroad? And what we're trying to do is to improve distribution, production, research, pest control, nutritional knowledge, market development, food safety. And so different organizations, private organizations, nonprofits, government entities can apply, producer associations can apply. So if you look, if you've seen that strawberry billboard, you see a strawberry against a white background. Mm-hmm. Now, you may never have noticed there's other things on the bottom of the sign, but you see that beautiful strawberry in that white background. That is partially paid for by a specialty crop block grant. Promotions we do for pecans, promotion we do, for many different products come from those specialty crop block grants. So you can apply. You can contact my office, Ms. Michelle Este, at the Department of Ag and Forestry, LDAF, and apply. And again, we'll have a team of people that will evaluate, those programs. And so, some of the examples of things that we have done, the project we have at a number of high schools with new and beginning beekeepers, with our FFA students, that we get them the hives, we get them the suits, we get them the books and everything. They learn how to raise bees. We get them the bees, and then they get to keep the hives and the honey. Tremendous education there.
And we've been, there was, I guess, over the last few years, there's been numerous stories about the bees and the depletion of the population.
Yes.
Are we starting to turn a corner there, or is it still bad?
It's still an issue because it is not a single issue. It is a syndrome of multiple different things. Now, one of the exciting things that just happened, we are going very soon to have a vaccine for foul brood. That's a big deal.
Wait, what?
A vaccine for foul brood in bees. That's one of the causes of colony collapse syndrome, where we lose the bees. So the first time we'll be vaccinating bees, and it'll be done in a sugar cube. Think about the polio vaccine in a sugar cube. So we'll be putting sugar cubes in our hives. That's how we think we're going to do it, to vaccinate them against foul brood. So that's a big deal. But
It's amazing.
It is. But the thing about bees, one of bees are not native to this country. They are European.
I didn't know that.
Right. And so the crops that have to be pollinated are also European.
Okay.
Right. And so, but one of the things that happens with our bees, we're trying to understand, one, is it because they don't have a diverse diet like they once did? Because, we have probably less than 1,000 acres of our native prairies left. So they need diversity in the diet. The other thing is that bees are susceptible to stress. How do you stress out a bee? Well, most of your big bee colonies are shipped around the country. They'll rest here during the winter, but they go to California to pollinate the almonds. Then they'll go to the Midwest for the sunflowers and other things. Then they'll come back and rest here. And so they are shipped. And so the stress affects their immune system,
Okay.
which can result in a death loss and further colony collapse disorder. We're also looking at interaction by moving these bees of a number of different things. So bees, that's big science. And to add to that, one of the preeminent bee research stations in the world is where? Right here in Baton Rouge.
Of course it would be. Of course it would be.
And we're excited about that. Look, I love my bees.
I want to know who has that job. I ship bees for a living.
A lot of
I'm a
people
bee chauffeur.
Absolutely. No, you'll be the truck driver, right?
Right.
We'll get you. Yeah. You know what the first thing you learn in the bee business? Number one thing you learn. First thing.
What's that?
Never buy a cheap bee suit.
He is that Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain. We're going to take a quick break for Your Money Now. Check traffic, come back, close it out next. It is 8:50 at Talk 107.3.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
That's what
I got
bee
the
suit?
best bee suit.
I
Well,
was
even
gonna
better.
say, when you
Even
say,
better.
How do you stress a bee out? I was gonna say your wife goes out there.
No.
Yeah,
The bees don't like my wife.
Yeah.
Because she was cutting grass, and she hit those beehives. And after that, look, they're like elephants. They never forget.
You didn't think about that, right?
Well, no. That's actually no. No. We don't know. We don't know if they got to get boosted or not. I'm going to vaccinate my bees, but it's a big issue in chicken and avian influenza. We've had a vaccine.
But people don't
But
want to
yeah.
vaccinate their chickens.
No, the foreign markets don't want us to vaccinate our chickens because
Then we won't get chicken from them.
No, because they say that if they buy a chicken, then they say they won't know whether or not potentially their chickens get vaccinated. It's stupid. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So my thought is, we've lost 58 million birds. Price of eggs got up to $8. If you don't want to buy our vaccinated products, guess what? Grow your own,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to vaccinate. We got to stop avian influenza because it's no longer coming in with migratory birds. It's all around us.
Right.
We've been testing for the last year, a lot of wild ducks, and everywhere we're testing now, in teal and other species, it's here,
Yeah.
and it's around us. So we've got to vaccinate. And I think very soon that we'll be having that discussion next week in Washington with the USDA on vaccination of egg-laying hens, because we have got to get a control on this disease. Because the other concern is that if it mutates, you know what the difference is between avian influenza, human influenza, and swine influenza? The predominance of the genetics in the virus. Okay? So
like you already have all the research on this one, so if it mutates, you're gonna have to start all over.
well, it's always mutating. It never quits.
Right.
Flu virus is like a wave. It's always moving, right?
Yeah, that's
Between
pretty good.
species. No. It's much
But I'm
much
saying, like,
more mutagenic than COVID.
Yeah.
COVID is somewhat isolated between a couple of species, not influenza, because it's moved between species for millennia. Yeah. So, and again, we're going to get a handle on this, but the thing about vaccinating the bees, yes, some people may object. They may not want to buy honey from vaccinated bees, but on a bad year, we'll lose 20 to 40% of the bee colonies to colony collapse disorder.
You have to just accept the solution. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, the fundamental nature of vaccination. You vaccinate when the risk of the disease is higher than the risk of the vaccination.
Yes. You mentioned the eggs, the bird flu there for a minute. Let's touch on that because it's looking like that we're on the back end of the bird flu. which means egg production should be on the way up,
It is.
which means wholesale prices should start dropping, which means retail prices should start dropping a
But
couple weeks
Easter's
after
coming.
that. But
But
Easter's
Easter's
coming up.
coming.
You're absolutely. That's where I was
Easter's
walking up to it.
Easter's coming. Easter's coming. Price of eggs is averaging about $3.60 a dozen here in Baton Rouge right now.
All right.
Imagine when it was up to 8 something.
Why do you think Bill Gates is buying up a bunch of farmland?
Because the average value of farmland grew 12% last year. The average value of farmland in Iowa grew 24% last year. What are they not making any more of?
What
Farmland.
the
Land.
Yeah,
Land. Where else can he
Land.
park his money that is as safe as land?
that's true.
And then not only that, he rents it out,
Mm-hmm.
right, on cost share. And so it's guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Guaranteed money. Agriculture's changed dramatically. For instance, a sugar grower. Many sugar growers don't own the land. So now you got an owner and a grower both making a living off the land. Not one, but two.
Right.
Okay. And so if you look at the average farmer probably is paying 25 to 30% cost share.
Mhm.
So 25%, and if the land generates $2,400 a year in sugar, well, his share of that is about $600 or $700 per acre.
Yeah.
So if you own 1,000 acres, and you can earn $600,000 a year
yeah.
sent directly to your mailbox, that's not a bad
Mailbox
gig. Yeah, mailbox money.
Yeah.
Yeah, mailbox money. I gotta work on that mailbox money.
That's why you get.
I gotta get a. Yep, I gotta get a bigger mailbox. That little one just Yep, it's like everything else. Buying land's like buying stocks.
Yeah, it is.
Just stay at it.
Minus the taxes that you have to pay on the land.
That's where I'm at now. It's brutal.
Shoot, yeah, I can
It's
imagine.
brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, taxes are brutal. But now on the
Also, when
stock,
you inherit land and then you just lose all your money because you have to pay the tax on the land instead of like.
you lose your cash. You can be land poor. That's a word called land poor. Yep. But now on stock equities, if you are in the higher tax bracket, you're paying 24% or 25% of long-term capital gains, 20% plus a penalty. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
856 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP, 57 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. And Commissioner Mike Strain going to close it out with us this morning. I appreciate all the time this morning.
Absolutely.
I told you when you walked in, it's like I didn't even bother to book guests for the rest of the hour.
I'm
'cause I know
good.
we're slated for one
You
segment.
don't have to be in Marksville till 11:30.
All right, then we're
That's
good
right.
to go.
We're
good
ready to go now. Fueled up last night.
Couple of quick notes before we continue our conversation is need to give a little plug for the West Baton Rouge Museum. You had mentioned Leonard Julian Sr. earlier. If you want to learn more about him, West Baton Rouge Museum is the place to go for that. He's from
here,
right near White Castle, or in between
That's right.
White Castle and Donaldsonville.
Right close here, yes.
And his history is very interesting in that, like, with his invention, like, everybody was trying to fling money at him, and he wouldn't take it. Right.
Because, if you read the articles, because they wouldn't leave his name on it.
Right.
So, So, no. He said, I just want my name on it.
Yeah.
Right? What's the big deal? And so if you look at, innovation, right? Necessity is the mother of innovation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at planting sugarcane, they needed a mechanical planter.
Yeah.
And that industry is just grown phenomenally now. And I think you're going to see more and more. The term plantation comes from planting cane. That's what it's about. Planting sugarcane, which is a huge industry here in Louisiana.
And Julian's history is Louisiana
That's
history.
right, Louisiana
And,
history.
Yeah, I got to read up on that a little bit. It was before the pandemic, so it's kind of not top of mind anymore. We got a couple minutes left. We got exactly 2 minutes left with Ag Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain. Let's talk about eggs.
Eggs have come down in prices.
Yep.
And so there were several things happening. One, trying to gear up production. It takes a period of time when you lose your hens because of the avian influenza. We lost 58 million birds
Right.
for avian influenza. So we've been gearing up. Plus, there's been what's called demand destruction. People quit buying the eggs because they were too high. So now the average wholesale price, is around, $320, $340. The average retail is around $360 in Baton Rouge. Now, Easter's coming.
Yes.
So what happens now, you will have a supply demand. There will be that increased demand for the supply that we have. We're continuing to work to get that supply chain back in line. We've got to get those price of eggs down. But it takes a while because, you think, so well, we lost the hens that lay the eggs. We also lost the hens that lay the fertilized eggs.
That make more hens.
That make more hens.
Right.
So, so it is a complicated supply chain. But we are working on that. We're also, I do believe very soon that we will have a vaccine available to vaccinate our hens to keep from losing them from avian influenza.
We got vaccinated bees. We got vaccinated hens. We just vaccinated everything.
Well, look, I'm a veterinarian, and I do herd health.
Yeah.
And we vaccinate our livestock because if not, guess what? We lose them.
Right.
So when you look at that herd, and if you look at the hens, they're concentrated in a small area. So disease controls is imperative. So you can do it by isolation and increase biosecurity. But with this virus is so infectious. We've got to vaccinate to stop this disease.
We are straight up out of time. I greatly appreciate the time. I love
Thank
when you
you.
come in. It's a fascinating conversation from start to finish. We got to get out of here. Moon Griffon is up next. Don't forget, Jeff Landry going to be on with Brian Kilmeade as well. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Tell Moon I said hello.
Will do.
Thank you. It's amazing. In my earlier life, we'd be doing herd health. A farmer have a disaster of diseases there on his farm. We go in and get him on a program, getting vaccinated up. 2 or 3 years goes by. I said, man, I don't need to do this anymore because everything's fine. Then they quit vaccinating, and guess what? Next year, all over again.
We got to get out of here, Facebook. We'll see you tomorrow. Haggai's in for a cup of tech gumbo and a whole lot more.